Hey everyone, Steven here from Redolessence and welcome back to another video. This is going to be the answer segment of my Q&A video. Not too long ago I put up a video on my channel in which I asked you guys to ask me any questions you want. It could be about my relationship with my fiance, about my fragrance hobby, just about anything in general, and you guys gave me your questions. I saw some very deep and profound questions and I'm very happy to be addressing them in this video today. So thank you for taking the time. I mean, just your involvement in my channel is spectacular. Thank you for being as involved as you are. Thank you for being concerned with my channel and what I do. It really means a lot to me. Now, I didn't want to leave any question unanswered, so you'll see that I have a list composed of a little fewer than 100 questions. So over 90 questions were asked. So I want to try to answer as many of these as possible. Last time when I did this, it took me about an hour to answer all of your questions, and I feel like this time I got even more questions being asked, so it might take me even longer than an hour. So depending on this video, you guys probably already know if you're watching it now, it might be broken up into several different parts. So it might say part 1 or part 2 in the title. So let's go ahead and start it off with part 1. Thank you again for all of your questions. I hope to do these segments more often in the future because I think we can both kind of learn from each other. But before I get into the list and the questions, I just want to tell you guys what my scent of the day is. My scent of the day today is Invictus by Paco Rabanne. I wore this scent to work today. It did very well for me. I got a lot of compliments at work. I know there's a lot of hate surrounding this fragrance in the community, and I think people have very good reasons for not liking it all too much, especially considering that it does smell kind of similar to 1 Million. So Paco Rabanne, many would argue, didn't do anything totally novel or unique with this one. But coincidentally, there is a question about Paco Rabanne's Invictus, and one of the questions that I received from you guys, so I'm going to hold off on talking any more about this fragrance until I actually get into the list. So with that being said, and without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the list. Thank you again for your questions. Number 1, what's your favorite Bond No. 9 fragrance and why? My favorite Bond No. 9 fragrance is this one, Andy Warhol Face Edition. Love it. Beautiful plum note. It has oud in there as well. It's playful, it's sweet, it's unique, it stands out, and it's a one-of-a-kind from Bond No. 9. Have not smelled to this day any other fragrance that smells quite the same way that it does. Do you have a fragrance in your collection which you've never really worn, only smell in your arm or paper? That's a very good question as well. And the answer to that, the short answer is yes. When I go to TJ Maxx or Marshall's, I always buy very inexpensive fragrances. If they're going for like $9.99 or $14.99, I'll usually pick it up, I'll open it up, I'll spray it on me in the car, and I might not give it a full wearing. But I want you to know that all of the fragrances that I've reviewed on my channel, I have given them full wearings. I've worn them for at least a week. I got a good feel for how they perform and how they smell and how they progress and develop on my skin. But there are certainly fragrances in my collection that I've only worn on skin maybe like once, and I haven't really committed to a full wearing. What is your take on fragrance reformulations? This is a very good question, so thank you for answering this. I have a few different opinions on it. First, I understand why it's being done and why the IFRA makes these regulations, but I'm always reminded of this quote that Mark Twain said, Samuel Clemens. He said, censorship is like telling a man he can't chew a steak, or censorship is telling a man he can't eat a steak because a baby can't chew. And I just think that that is such a profound quote. And I think it summarizes quite concisely what fragrance reformulations do, because some people are sensitive to the way that certain chemicals or ingredients react on their skin. That fragrance needs to be reformulated. What I think should be done, because there are inherent hazards and risks and other things like smoking and drinking and medication, I think they should just put a warning label saying that this product contains allergens, and just let people know what are these ingredients that are allergenic. So that people know to avoid them. But when you think about it, we wear fragrance like between 10 and 12 times a day. It's in our deodorant, it's in our shampoo, it's in our lotion, it's in our aftershave, and it's in our body wash. So I think some people who say they're sensitive to fragrances might not be as sensitive as they're making it out to be. But I don't like fragrance reformulations. I don't think it's fair that, you know, you'll be wearing the same fragrance for 10 years out of your life, and now you're being told that you can never wear that fragrance ever again because it's been reformulated. So I'm a little ambivalent on that. What are the best vanilla scents in the designer and niche markets? Very good question. It really all depends what kind of vanilla you're going for. If you're going for a very plain, simple, straightforward vanilla, maybe something like Guerlain's Spiritu Double Vanille. I think that is a beautiful vanilla in the niche market. If you're looking for a designer vanilla, of course, there are fragrances like Le Male by Jean Paul Gaultier, Eros by Versace, which also has a note of tonka bean in there. So I think there are a lot of really nice vanilla scents on the market. Atelier Cologne is one of those brands that are now accessible at designer markets like Sephora, and they have a fragrance called Vanille Insensé, so you might really like that one as well. So I think there are a lot of really good offerings out there. It's just a matter of getting your hands on it. Next question. What do you think about Silver Mountain water? Was there any special compliment on it, or I guess a compliment that I've received on it? I have never been complimented on Silver Mountain water by Creed, but I do like it. It's not one of my favorites, but I like it because it's one of the more abstract releases from the House of Creed. Have you chosen your wedding day fragrance? I believe I have. There's one fragrance that I have in the back of my mind, and I'm pretty sure that it's the one that I'm going to choose for my wedding. I'm not going to disclose it in this video only because this Saturday I'm meeting up with a couple other very popular YouTube fragrance reviewers in the city, and we're going to film a video on that very topic. So as to not take away from the content of that video, I'm not going to tell you what I think it's going to be in this video, but I want to thank you for understanding. What do you think is the best fragrance for cuddling with my girlfriend? That's a good question as well. I guess when we want to wear a fragrance to bed, you know, we want to wear our close encounter scent. But typically, I would try to avoid wearing something heavy. You don't want to wear something like a Montal to bed or something like that, you know? You want to typically reach for something that's a little bit safer, maybe perhaps something that smells citrusy and fresh and clean and smells as though you just got out of the shower. So I would probably recommend a Prada. It could be Prada Luna Rosa, Infusion Dome, Amber Pour Homme. As long as it's not an intense flanker or an extreme flanker, I think you're pretty safe from the House of Prada. Also, I would try to avoid spraying on your neck, especially if cuddling ends up leading into something else. You don't want her to kiss on your neck and then, you know, she gets a taste of cologne in her mouth or anything like that. I'm pretty sure that can be a turn off. What was the first fragrance that you ever purchased, and how old were you at the time? This is a fantastic question. Now, in full disclosure, I don't remember what the first fragrance is that I actually paid my own money for, but the first fragrance that I owned was CKB by Calvin Klein, and my mother bought it for me when I was about 10 years old. So for that reason, it's very sentimental to me, and I have a lot of really fond memories with it. What are your 3 most favorite Creed fragrances? They would have to be Creed's Aventus, Creed's Millésime Imperial, and Creed's Spice and Wood. What's your favorite fragrance of all time, and what is your favorite designer fragrance house? Now, I would be lying if I told you that I have a favorite fragrance or even a favorite fragrance house. I don't have a favorite fragrance, but some of my favorites include Infusion Dome by Prada. I love Spice Bomb by Victor and Rolf. I really enjoy Un Jardin sur le Nil by Hermès. I really like Dior Homme Intense by Christian Dior. So those are some of my favorites. Oh, by the way, if you hear my dogs walking around in the background, just please excuse them. I don't want to put them in the backyard because then they're going to start barking. My neighbors are like barbecuing in the back, so it's going to be even louder than it is now. I don't have a favorite designer house, but I do like Dior. I love just the variety and the versatility in their line. Everything from Fahrenheit to Poison to Dior Homme Intense, and even the La Collection Privé line. So maybe Dior might be one of my favorite designer houses, but I like Thierry Mugler too, so it's really hard. It's hard to tell. Are you a teacher? Good question. I think I've mentioned it in a couple of my videos, but I am a teacher. I teach here in New Jersey, in northern New Jersey. I teach 10th grade English, and this year I taught a film and literature elective for seniors. A couple of years ago I also taught creative writing, but yes, I do teach language arts at the high school level. When will you buy a new camera so we can see you in more detail? The actual one really sucks. Love your videos. Well, thank you for the compliment, despite the fact that it's a little backhanded. But I've actually been thinking about purchasing a new camera lately. I've been looking into DSLR cameras, preferably, yeah, I'm sure they all record at 1080p. and I do want to upgrade my current setup. I want to get better lighting, better audio, better video. It's a little bit difficult because, as many of you probably may or may not know, I am getting married in November, and my fiance and I are paying for our wedding ourselves. We are getting some support from our family, but not a great deal. So being that the majority of the money that's going to be spent on our wedding is raised by us, we're trying to be as conservative as possible, hence the reason why I haven't bought a new fragrance in the past month and a half. Even the unboxings that you guys see on my channel were actually recorded a long time ago, but they were only recently uploaded to YouTube. So very good question, very good question. I will be buying a new camera and audio hopefully this summer. Do you know any fragrance for men that contains the note of peach? Fantastic question. The first thing that I want to say in regard to that is, if there's a fragrance that you've already smelled that contains peach and you like the way that it smells, but you've been hesitant on buying it or wearing it because it's marketed for women, completely ignore that. Wear it anyway. If you like it, just wear it. But as far as one being marketed for men or unisex that contains the note of peach, I don't remember if it's necessarily peach or apricot, but like a similar ingredient to that. Blamage by Nasamato. Actually have my Nasamatos here. Blamage by Nasamato. This is one I would definitely recommend. I hear you and other reviewers all the time talking about longevity of a certain fragrance. Does that indicate the whole time that you can smell it, even if it's light skin scent, or the time that people can smell you if they are in your personal space, not to confuse it with projection? This is a very good question, and just ignore my dogs in the background. When I wear fragrances, I typically also spray the back of my hand because I like to smell it throughout the day. So what I do is, I hold my hand about a foot away from my nose, and if I'm still able to smell it, then I would consider that still projecting. But if I have to bury my nose into my skin in order to detect that it's still there, then I would say the longevity is done on it. So that's a very good question, and that's what I talk about when I talk about longevity. Me still being able to perceive it from at least a foot away. Have you ever had a serious fight or conflict with Jen over your fragrance passion, be it due to the money invested on it or the space all those hundreds of bottles are taking? Has she ever said you might need to stop or slow down once you get married or have kids? The answer is yes to all of the above. We have gotten into some fights and quarrels and tussles and disagreements, but they've all been resolved in a very short period of time. Fortunately, I'm not, draining my bank account on this hobby. I have multiple sources of income. We're still able to put off hundreds of dollars to the side every paycheck to save up for our wedding. So yeah, she does get annoyed from time to time, especially considering that I have so many fragrances. But she has her vices as well. So I would say our money is, play hard, work hard, play hard, right? Our money is spent in a way that makes both of us very happy. What's the best amber sweet vanilla that you would recommend? First off, I would like to clarify what an amber note is. The note of amber is actually an accord in today's perfumery. And that's because the amber that we think of, the fossilized amber that's found in the scarabs, actually went extinct with the dinosaurs. So whatever amber is left over has such a low odor profile that its use in perfumery would not only be expensive, but it would be trivial, next to insignificant. So what we see in the perfume industry today is a recreation of amber. And they usually use a prescribed blend of vanilla, labdanum, and benzoin. Sometimes they might throw a Popinax, myrrh, galbanum into the mix just to kind of modify it a little bit, tweak it. So all amber scents inherently contain vanilla for the most part. So the best amber vanilla scent, Spiritu Double Vanille is a beautiful vanilla scent. I already mentioned that. That one is by Guerlain. I also been wearing one recently by Laboratorio Olfativo called Alambar. That's a really good amber as well. Perfumum Roma has some excellent ambers, Fiore d'Ambra, also Ambra Aurea, and another one, I had it on the tip of my tongue and I just forgot it. Mitza by Dior, that's a great one too. Ambre Nuit is another one if you're a fan of rose. So there are a lot of really good ambers on the market. As we know from your previous videos, you have close to 400 perfumes in your collection, which means that most of your perfumes would be old if they're not worn regularly. Also, how long before you notice perfumes going bad, barring those stored in the wine cooler? Any designer or niche houses or any specific perfumes that tend to change up either to be better or worse in the dry downs? Also, are there any specific notes that tend to break down in the long run? Your advice in general for fellow fragrance collectors. I have one fragrance that turned bad over the years, and that's Kenzo Pour Homme. When I bought it, it smelled amazing. I think I bought it back in like 2003. I don't remember the exact year, but it has since turned over the time. And now it smells like a Sharpie marker. It smells really bad. But to answer your question in a concise and laconic way, the notes that tend to go first are the more volatile citrus notes, or the more volatile notes in general, because they're comprised of a smaller molecular structure. So they're the weakest as far as integrity goes. The base notes are the ones that tend to linger a little bit later on in the development of the fragrance, and they will go bad if they're exposed to light, if they're exposed to heat, and if they're exposed to oxygen. None of the fragrances that I've been storing in my wine cooler, fortunately, have gone bad, so all of my fragrances are still good, and occasionally I do pick up my scents from time to time to smell them, spray them on paper, spray them on skin. And fortunately, aside from the Kenzo, I can safely say there's no scent in my 400 plus bottles that has gone bad. So me storing them away from the heat and oxygen and direct sunlight has been a good thing. Just make sure you preferably store them in the box away from the elements. So we're getting into the next question now. Were you born in the US or in another country? I was born in Flushing, Queens in New York. So yes, I was born in the US. Are you fluent in other languages? I'm fluent in English, I have partial proficiency in Spanish, and I have complete proficiency in Greek. I did receive an elementary education in the Greek language. I went to Greek school, so I do speak and read Greek quite proficiently. Hey, where and at what times do you apply fragrances, and which spots are the best at spraying? Very good question, especially considering that this is a question that I get quite often. When I apply fragrances, of course you hear sales associates and those in the industry telling you to spray on pulse points, and I do have to agree with that to a degree. Pulse points include the areas of your skin where the veins sit closer to the surface of your skin, and because it generates blood, the blood circulates, it also generates heat, and the heat is what allows the fragrance to jump up off your skin and to project as well as it does. These areas include your wrists, your neck, the sides of your neck right below your ears. I also like spraying the back of my neck so that it leaves a sillage or a scent trail. And I like to spray it in my hair as well, because the oil, I guess it kind of like latches onto the scent, or the scent latches onto the oil, and it lasts a little bit longer when I spray it in my hair. And also on my clothes. If it's a lighter colored juice and I don't have to worry about staining my shirts, I will also spray it on my clothes. It's not going to project as loudly, but it is going to last a longer period of time. Duke! But also I like something that fellow YouTube fragrance reviewer Katie Puckrick said in one of her videos. She goes, I'm not a cadaver. My whole body generates heat. So she likes to spray it all over her body. And I kind of have to agree with that. Just spray it wherever you'd like. There's really no right or wrong place to spray it. But those are the pulse points that I was talking about. Does it ever get boring just doing fragrances? Also, what is your favorite fragrance for summer, fall, winter, and spring? Now, I won't answer the second question just because I've made top 10 videos on each one of those seasons. So just feel free to check out any of my seasonal videos, and those will tell you exactly which seasons and which fragrances I love wearing in each particular season. But as far as it getting boring, no, it does not. Every day I love fragrances more than I did the day before. And I thought that my hobby was, growing at a quite increasingly large rate when I first started getting into fragrances, and the more and more that I became absorbed into this hobby, the more that I enjoy it, and I love it now more than I did 3 years ago when I first started really seriously getting into fragrances and reviewing them on my YouTube channel. What's your favorite scent on Jen in general? I love designer, I love Light Blue by Dolce & Gabbana. Niche, I love Aqua Fiorentina by Creed. And both of those smell kind of similar to each other. There's also another one that we smelled in Sephora recently called B by Balenciaga. That one is also fantastic. What fragrance were you wearing when you proposed to Jen? I was wearing The One by Dolce & Gabbana. What fragrance do you wear when you're just chilling at home? Excellent question, and I'll tell you why. When I'm at home, I usually tend for fragrances that I'm not as comfortable wearing in public. So usually my more daring scents, if I think a particular fragrance is like cloyingly or sickeningly sweet, I usually tend to wear it around the house. So fragrances like Interlude Man by Amouage, some other offerings from the house of Amouage, namely Epic Man, maybe even Memoir Man. These fragrances that I don't feel ultra comfortable wearing in most social scenarios, I'll tend to wear them around the house, but I wear them in public too, but usually my more daring scents. If Jen can just describe you with one fragrance, what will it be? Jen is my fiance, by the way. I guess if she had to describe me with one scent, she would probably pick something like Nautica Voyage, only because that's her favorite scent on me. So if she would want to know me or remember me or associate me with one scent, she would probably pick Nautica Voyage. Steven, your room looks like a fragrance store. Is there a fragrance that you love but you don't own? What's currently on your buying list? There's always a fragrance that I love that I don't own, and for that reason I'm still into this hobby and I'm still making purchases. Not in a long time, but a few fragrances on my list are 1861 by Xerjoff, especially considering the season. That's a fantastic scent. I also want to buy Molecule 01 by Eccentric Molecules. That's a good fragrance. I mean, I've had Isoe Super before, and that's just a good note for layering as well. It kind of has like a pheromone-like effect, so I really want to buy that. A few By Kilians that I want to buy. I want to buy Apple Brandy. You know, the list goes on and on. There's always a fragrance that I want to buy. What are your top 5 favorite houses, niche or designer? I really don't know. That's a hard one for me to answer. I love Creed, I love Amouage, I love Nasamato, I love Chanel, I love Dior, Thierry Mugler. You know, I have a lot of favorite houses, but as far as picking my top 5 favorites, if I ever do that, maybe I'll make it into a video. But that's an excellent question. Thank you for asking. What kind of music do you listen to? I think my preference in music is very versatile. I'll listen anything from, you know, what's playing on the radio, but I really like pop rock, and I know a lot of these bands tend to receive shade from people, and they're usually dubbed as cliche, but I do like pop rock. I like bands like Panic at the Disco, Fall Out Boy, any band that's signed under the label Fueled by Ramen. I love All Time Low, another band called Cute Is What We Aim For. These are the bands that I grew up listening to. Yellow Card, I've seen them in concert 11 times. I won a signed guitar by them. I know them all on kind of a personal level. I've communicated with them online. So I do listen to a lot of different bands and music, but one of my favorite bands is the Beatles. So I'm really into oldies like Buddy Holly, Sam Cooke, the Beatles. I really like music from the 60s. Have you ever been in situations where you over-applied a fragrance and drew too much attention to yourself or got a bad reaction? What were they and how did it go down? Fantastic question. I did actually, I guess you could say I over-applied on a fragrance and I misjudged it, or I just didn't know how it was going to smell or perform because it was a blind buy. I bought Copper Skies by Kerosene, and it came, or it got delivered to my house just when it was time for me to leave to go to work. Now, of course, I wasn't going to wait until the end of my shift to smell it, so I brought it with me to work. And when I got to work, I took it out of the box and I just sprayed it all over. I must have done like 8 sprays. And if you know, Copper Skies is a beast of a fragrance. and I walked into the secretary's office and she started coughing, and I felt so self-conscious at that time. So yeah, that was one incident. What other YouTube reviewers have you met in real life? I've been fortunate enough to meet some amazing people in this community, both subscribers and reviewers alike, and I love the experiences that I've made in this community, the friends that I've met along the way. And I've met Carlos, Brooklyn Fragrance Lover. I've met Chad, A Gentleman's Journey. I have met Al, Fragrance Fanatic 1. I've met Cody, Drakdoc. I've met many reviewers in person, and I feel very fortunate about it. I'm sorry if I'm forgetting your name, but I have met many reviewers. Is there another fragrance reviewer you haven't met that you would still like to hang out with? All of the reviewers that I haven't met, I would like to hang out with, whether it's Rio or Mark or any of my Canadian friends. A lot of reviewers that I would like to meet, Raj, any of my friends in the UK, Lupe. But one reviewer was actually the first reviewer that I ever saw on YouTube, and kind of the reviewer that made me want to start making my own videos, is Miguel, Hiro Yoruzuka. And his video, My Perfected Starting Lineup, was the first video that I saw on YouTube. And it's what really got me into watching videos and buying niche fragrances. So I would definitely love to meet him in person one day. I would say he's probably the first reviewer that I've gotten to know. Oh, also other reviewers that I've hung out with, of course, Freddie Rivera, Renee Zayas. The names are coming to me now. So guys, thank you so much for watching. I'm gonna have to end it there. This is part 1. I wanted to keep this video about a half-hour long, so thank you for tuning in. Please make sure to tune in a few days from now when part 2 airs on my channel. Thank you for all the amazing questions that I've received, and hope some of your questions were answered in this video. So thanks again. Please stay tuned. I have many more top 10s, reviews, and even a giveaway coming up on my channel. So thank you, stay tuned, and I will see you in the future with another video. This has been Steven from Redolessence. See you soon.